The night was quieter than most in Dubai. The desert wind whispered like an old secret, brushing against the palace walls where Sheikh Hamdan stood alone beneath a moon that refused to hide. The world slept, but his heart was awake, alive with the ghosts of memories he could no longer bear to keep. That night, he made a vow not to the world, but to himself. It was the night he decided to erase every trace of her, every shadow of her laughter, every echo of her name that lingered too long in his soul. He had once believed love was eternal, that certain souls were meant to meet and never part. But destiny, with its cruel and holy precision, had proven otherwise. The same love that had once lifted him now weighed upon his spirit like an anchor. He could no longer write her into his poetry, he could no longer dream her into his tomorrows. That night, he realized some stories must end not because they lack beauty, but because their beauty has become too painful to carry. As he walked through his chamber, the fragrance she had once worn seemed to linger in the air, teasing him like a memory that refused to die. He opened the drawer where her letters still rested, their words soft yet haunting. For a moment, his heart faltered, his fingers trembling over the edges of her handwriting. Then, with the steady breath of a man reclaiming his destiny, he burned them, watching as the flames consumed every word she had ever written, every confession once dear. The smoke rose like a prayer to heaven, taking her memory with it. His eyes did not weep, but the silence around him did. The walls seemed to remember their laughter, the gardens their midnight walks. Even the horses in the royal stables turned their heads as if sensing something had changed, that the poet prince was burying the last piece of his heart. Love had been his greatest poem, but now, even poetry could not save him from the weight of remembrance. That night, he did not write, he erased. He walked out into the open courtyard, where the desert stretched endlessly, and the stars shimmered like secrets untold. He closed his eyes and whispered her name one last time, not in pain, but as a final goodbye. The sound of it faded into the wind, dissolving like mist under dawn's first light. In that fleeting silence, he felt the release of something sacred, something both heavy and healing. It was the first moment in years his soul had felt weightless. The moonlight reflected on his face, illuminating the calm resolve of a man who had chosen peace over longing. He understood now that love is not always meant to be eternal in form, it is eternal in transformation. What once burned like fire within him now glowed quietly, like embers of wisdom. She had been his muse, his secret, his prayer. But tonight, she became his past. And with that acceptance came a serenity that no crown, no poem, no dream had ever given him. He returned to his writing desk, but this time the words flowed differently. There were no more verses of yearning, no metaphors of loss. Instead, he wrote about freedom, the freedom to love without possession, to feel without falling, to remember without pain. It was as if his pen had forgiven his heart, allowing him to create not from sorrow, but from peace. The ink no longer spoke of her, it spoke of himself reborn. Outside, the wind carried the ashes of her letters across the dunes, scattering them into the night sky. Somewhere, far beyond sight, her memory became one with the stars. He looked up, and for the first time, he smiled, not because he forgot, but because he had learned how to live without the weight of remembering. His eyes no longer carried her image, they carried light. As dawn approached, Sheikh Hamdan stood before the rising sun, the horizon glowing gold like divine forgiveness. The warmth touched his face, drying what tears he had never allowed to fall. The world looked new, untouched by yesterday's ache. It was a beginning disguised as an ending, a sacred rebirth of a heart that had finally let go. He felt gratitude, not grief. Love had not failed him, it had freed him. Throughout the day, he moved with quiet purpose. The palace, once filled with echoes of the past, now felt like a temple of renewal. Every breath he took felt. In the weeks that followed that unforgettable night, the stillness within him deepened into a rare kind of clarity. He began to see the world with unclouded vision, as though every dawn was a message from the heavens reminding him that endings are sacred beginnings in disguise. The pain that once haunted his every breath now seemed like a distant echo, softened by wisdom. Sheikh Hamdan had crossed the invisible bridge between love and transcendence, and on the other side of that crossing, he found peace. His friends noticed it before he spoke of it. There was something different in his presence, an aura of calm so profound it silenced the noise around him. He smiled more often, not out of joy alone, but out of understanding. He had learned that peace does not come when the storm passes, it comes when the heart stops chasing what has already drifted away. In erasing her from his memories, he had not denied her existence, he had merely chosen to honor her by letting her spirit rest. At night, when he returned to his private terrace overlooking the shimmering city, the same moon that once witnessed his sorrow now seemed to bless his solitude. The stars no longer reminded him of her eyes, they reminded him of destiny's quiet perfection. What had once been a wound had become wisdom. He no longer searched the sky for signs of her, he had finally realized that the universe speaks most clearly when we stop begging it to repeat old songs. He often wrote in his journal then, but his words carried a different rhythm. They no longer spoke of loss or longing, they spoke of acceptance, of divine timing, of the kind of love that no longer hurts to remember. I do not miss her, he once wrote. I thank her for teaching me how vast the human heart can be. Those words became his private scripture, a reminder that the purest form of love is not possession, but gratitude. In the days that followed, he wrote again, poems not of her, but of truth, faith, and destiny. The verses carried the rhythm of acceptance, the melody of a heart that had survived love and learned from it. His words became softer, yet more powerful. They no longer sought to heal a wound, they celebrated the scars that proved he had lived deeply. Every line was a quiet monument to the night he had let her go. The people who saw him that morning noticed something different in his presence, a new calm, a silent strength. They could not see what he had buried the night before, but they felt the peace that came after it. And so the promise that shattered the kingdom's peace became